I'm Peter Underwood and this is News from the Water. Battle of the River Lee is over, for now at least. After a long, loud and articulate campaign by boaters against the Canal and River Trust's plans for safety zones on the River Lee that would have removed many of the mooring spaces on the river, it looks like the Trust have been forced into a grudging climb down. The protest parades of boats, towpath lobbying and several stories in national and local newspapers siding with the boaters pushed the Trust into agreeing to set up a proper consultation exercise using an outside body, Hopkins Van Mil. And they've not backed CRT's plans for safety zones, but have sent them back to the drawing board to produce proper risk assessments, real accident figures, and share all that information with all the groups using the river. The consultant's report also backs up the NBTA demand for a group where boaters, rowers and other users can come together to work out their own solutions to any safety issues. Now, Canal and River Trust have been able to get a clause included in the report that says they should do their job and enforce existing rules on the river, something several observers have said has been impossible because of severe understaffing. CRT's response to the report is led by the news that instead of employing more staff, they're bringing in car park enforcement firm District Enforcement, people recently removed from a moorings contract on the Thames. And they'll come in as a contractor to enable CRT to step up mooring patrols to make them daily along the Lee. The NBTA, meanwhile, is jubilant about what they describe as a climb-down response by Canal and River Trust, saying the stakeholder engagement about the River Lee water safety zones carried out by Hopkins Van Mil represents a massive victory for the boating community of London. However, it's clear from CRT's response to the consultation that they're following the recommendations with gritted teeth and still want to get back to their safety zones eventually. NBTA is under no illusions and say their work on this is not necessarily finished. But they're confident that now the boating community has had the taste of success in this campaign, it will not just stand by while CRT make any new attempts to introduce measures which will have a negative effect on the boating community in London. Now, you can't come to our festival, so there. And yet, just as Canal and River Trust were forced to capitulate to London's boaters and the National Bargee Travellers Association in particular, it seems that, like a truculent child who's had his toys removed, some within the Trust couldn't resist lashing out in spite. NBTA had applied for a stall at this weekend's Angel Canal Festival in Islington, run by CRT, normally a straightforward process for potential stall holders. However, Shoshana Goodman, who revels in the title Events and Signage Delivery Manager for CRT in London and the South East, asked for more information, claiming,
"We make decisions on the basis of organisations that support the values and aspirations of the Trust."
The MBTA's Marcus Trower explained that the stall would show the work done by the NBTA to support liveaboard boaters, which then brought this reply from Shoshana Goodman.
"Thank you for the clarification about your stall. I'm afraid we're unable to accommodate any more stalls at the festival this year. It's a much smaller festival to allow for social distancing, and we've had to make the difficult decision to cap the number of stalls that we have."
Nick Corrigan and Marcus replied for the MBTA asking why the criteria had changed from what activities were taking place, to the number of stalls, and asking whether the stallholders had been accepted in the date order in which they applied, pointing out that other stallholders hadn't had any similar messages. They went on to say if the decision had been made based on the nature of the NBTA and any concerns about the compatibility of its values with those of CRT, would Shoshana at least be upfront about it? A phone call followed with Nick Corrigan, which brought another email from Shoshana.
As discussed, the Canal and River Trust are concerned about the language and antitrust sentiment on your website, which goes against the values of our organisation and the community feel of the Angel Canal Festival. We recognise that steps are being taken on both sides to constructively work together towards a better future working relationship, but this is still work in progress. As this is the first event of this size and nature the Trust has held since before the pandemic, we want it to be enjoyed by the community, and feel that we're not able to have your organisation represented at the event.
Nick says he's in no doubt that Shoshana was simply following orders from her bosses. That's the same bosses that described London boaters as these people in a Zoom meeting, the same bosses who had just been forced to climb down over the River Lee safety zones after a highly articulate and successful NBTA campaign. Apparently, criticism is not compatible with CRT's values. Canal and River Trust's London Public Relations Officer was asked for a comment.
With regard to the application made by the NBTA, we are regretfully unable to offer a stall at a Trust-run event at this particular moment. While we are keen to foster a positive relationship with the NBTA, the differences of opinion over the Lee navigation remain a live issue which is still in the process of being resolved.
Safer towpaths need to make a comeback. One of the encouraging things to come out of the River Lee Safety Zones consultation was the need for river users to look more widely at safety, beyond occasional collisions between rowers and other boats, and towards making the waterways safer places to be, whether you're a boater, rower, walker, runner or cyclist. The appearance of boats on parts of the London Canal system that had rarely seen them before has played a part in bringing the towpaths back into the communities the waterways pass through, so they're no longer no-go areas in certain areas of London, but instead they can welcome not just boaters but other towpath users. Because those areas are still targeted by criminals, including thieves and muggers, and that led to the creation back in 2017 of Canal Watch London, which encouraged boaters to band together, not as vigilantes but as visible groups willing to walk the towpaths, talk to other boaters and users, and encourage them to take sensible precautions against crime both on their boats and on the towpath. Founders Helen Bryce and Julien Bouillet organised regular patrols in East London, helped by Shorim, a Jewish group organising anti-crime patrols on land, and eventually by the local community police. Now they're looking to revive Canal Watch after much crime dissipated during the corona lockdowns, and I spoke to Helen and Julien about their plans.
The initiative we started probably 3 years ago also help to make, in a way, people aware of, obviously, those problems of crime along the canal, but also we've been able to, in a way, I suppose, I hope that we made the canal and rivers a bit more safe during the years, thanks to the boaters community that joined some patrol, and also the help of the local councillors and some SNT, local SNT.
So that initiative was working, and then along came COVID. And did the crime all go away, or was it that people were on their boats?
It was probably because people were not moving and living aboard their boats. I mean, it seemed to die down during COVID and then has picked up again with earnest in a very organised way in certain areas.
Anyway, so what do you want from boaters? I mean, what do the boaters in that stretch, what would you like them to do?
Hélène, sorry.
Well, to not be afraid to keep an eye out and to speak to other boaters in that area, to make contact. If there are empty boats, or I think somebody got burgled and broken into because their boats there, they haven't moved on to it yet, and they're having it fitted out. And unfortunately, all the appliances got stolen. So to keep an eye out for boats that are empty. We've got a few. Julianne has distributed and put up some posters that give some guidelines as to what to do. To lock things properly. Don't show a padlock on the outside of your boat. That is a big sign to say, I'm not here.
Yeah.
And several bits of advice about this. Try more with other boaters, and keep walking about every now and then. Don't leave the boat for too long on its own, for days on end. That's the other thing.
Quite. How do they contact you? How do boaters get in touch with you?
We have an email address. We have a Facebook account where people can join, can contact us. Usually we leave an email address, which is canalwatchlondon@gmail.com, where people spontaneously ask if they can help, or if they can join a patrol, for example, or if they can help coordinate those events.
And when is the next patrol planned?
So we plan to get one at the end of the week on Friday.
Friday the 3rd.
Am I right, Hélène?
Yeah, Friday the 3rd of September, meeting at 7 p.m. with the idea, if there are, we only need 4 or 5 people to be going out together. Julianne will lead the patrol, I'm assuming, Julianne, on Friday at 7. If there are lots of people, we might be able to sort of have various patrols of different people through the evening, sort of between 7 and 10, but we're meeting at 7 o'clock at Limehouse. The exact location to be confirmed.
That's it for this week. See you again soon.
We need video and photos of all aspects of the waterways. Email files to peterunderwood2@gmail.com with your name and a brief description of it and where and when it was shot.